You're tuning into the Journey to Your Best Self podcast, where we explore the path to holistic well-being, personal growth, and living a fulfilling life. Each episode, we bring you insightful conversations, practical tools, and inspiring stories to help you integrate your mind, body, and spirit on your journey to becoming your best self. Let's dive in and embark on this journey together. Welcome back to the Journey to Your Best Self podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian O'Neill, and alongside me is our co-host, clinical hypnotherapist, certified life coach, and yoga instructor, and my sister, Tara O'Neill. Hi, Tara.
Hello, hello, hello.
Today, we're diving into the power of words and exploring how language that we use, both internally and externally, shapes our reality, mindset, and energy levels. But before we dive into this really interesting topic that's going to help, I think, a lot of people listening and tuning in today, just wanted to give a shout out always in our thoughts, our listeners, right, followers, anyone tuning in. There's a lot that we try to offer you guys, and we are really appreciative. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can regularly get the resources and videos and podcasts that we're putting out, and also follow us on Instagram for several days a week. We're giving a lot of information out there. And also head to youroneself.com and taraoneal.com to get a ton of resources that are free and even more in depth, where we dive further into these topics and Tara can take things to the next level. So thanks again. And, we're always looking to provide things that will help everyone in our ecosystem out. Tara, anything to add to that?
No, absolutely. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners. Our audience is absolutely amazing, so supportive, kind, encouraging, and really enjoying this. So we will keep offering as much as we can to them, to the public, and from the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
Awesome. So a topic that you feel very strongly about, Tara, and we've hinted at it throughout earlier episodes and throughout the podcast and in earlier episodes, because words are humanity's choice form of communication, right? So they're so important, but it's also a way that you communicate with yourself all the time. This is a topic that affects all parts of your oneself, but also affects everyone that's out there listening, whether or not wherever they are on their journey. So I think there's going to be a lot here, no matter where you're at. So we wanted to start off by talking about inner dialogue, right? So usually when we think of words, we think of, or at least I do, think of conversation, people talking with each other, people presenting, giving speeches, having conversations, interacting, banter, just communicating, connecting, trying to buy something at the store, talking to their children, talking to their wife, talking on the phone. So it's usually when I think about words, it's when you're talking with someone else or a group of people. But there's an inner dialogue that's going on all the time, which is probably even more so happening than your interactions with others, especially, if you're living alone or by yourself, right? So the words are constantly, occurring inside of you. Can you talk a little bit about what we mean by inner dialogue and, how that affects us, day to day, hour to hour?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to go back. I'm going to rewind a little bit and touch more on words as more than just a means of communication. They are powerful tools that shape our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately our reality or our world, our environment. And the language we use has a profound impact on our subconscious mind, and it influences how we perceive others and the world around us. These positive words or words can be more positive or more negative depending on many factors. And sometimes we'll say with positive words, they carry a higher vibration and they can uplift our mood. They can boost our confidence. They can promote a sense of well-being. And then negative words might have more of a lower vibration, be a little bit denser, a little heavier. They can induce stress. They can lower our energy. They can reinforce negative beliefs or limiting beliefs. They can trigger us. If you've ever had, heard that word that just made you feel like icky, that would be more of a negative or lower vibrational word. And with this, it's not just about how we say them out loud, it is also what we're saying even before we say things out loud, so our inner dialogue. And we want to make sure that we have a good relationship with ourselves. So what is that inner dialogue? Who are we even talking to? And so we have to remember that it's just a part of us, that it's not our essence. So that often that inner dialogue can have a negative vibe to it, or negative feeling, or get you stuck, lead you to be ruminating or overthinking. And so what we can do is identify some of these words and how they're making us feel. So the words will often be linked to some sort of emotion or some sort of experience that you had. Maybe it could be something that's unprocessed, or something that's causing a lot of excitement in your life, negative or positive. So internally, most of us have an inner dialogue, and it definitely has a relation to our inner self, different parts of ourself. And I'm not sure about you, Brian, but I have often, thought like, oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's really hard. That's really difficult. Or, oh man, I just keep making the same mistake. Like, I really stink at this, and I always do this. I never do this. I should do this. And so these thoughts happen all day long. Hopefully they're not usually that negative, and sometimes they're there to keep us safe and protect us, but for the most part they're borrowed, or they're outdated. They were from a time in the past, so most of us do not need them anymore. So what we're going to do today is talk about how we can reframe and transmute those words, or even figure out why a word triggers us or is negative to us. So it's the meaning that we have behind the word. And then ultimately, as we clean up our inner dialogue, the words we speak is also going to change and benefit us. And then we will invite that energy within our orb, within our environment. We will read those words more often. We can write those words more often. And ultimately, it has a ripple effect on things that are greater than maybe what we can perceive in this moment, or in this short-term reality. So that being said, yes, we're going to explore the internal, what we have, our inner dialogue, the words that we speak, and then the words that we write, or the words that we read.
Excellent. And one of the exciting things about, what you're going to be able to get out of this episode is that empowering is something that we talk about a lot. Empowerment, taking command of your thoughts, right? So a lot of times, for the uninitiated, you think that, and it just seems like that thoughts just flow unbidden, or unattracted. They're just on their own, or they develop on their own, or they just flow into your mind on their own. And that, in some ways, if you're not connected maybe with your mind or your subconscious, it does seem like that. But here, some of the tools and strategies that we're going to talk about later on is a way to take command of that space inside of you. And when you introduce some positive words and kind of clean up, like you said, that inner dialogue that's no longer needed and is really negatively affecting you, you can take ownership, right, of your mind and thoughts, and there's going to be so many ancillary benefits there, right? So if we can introduce more positive, high vibe, high energy, words and phrases into the mix, it's going to have a lot of different, and everyone's capable of doing that. That's what's so exciting. So it's just about doing the assessment, like you had talked about, and it's about the consistency, and it's about the execution, right? So assessing what's going on, clearing out things like that execution part, and then just consistently like reaffirming and strengthening, like you said, those patterns and pathways. So it's pretty amazing that anyone, you don't have to just be an observer, a bit of a victim to your own thoughts, because they are in fact your thoughts. So now it's about command of your mindset, and take it from a limiting, right, scarcity place, and making it positive. So
Yeah.
where did you want to start us off, Tara?
Yes. I do want to preface with there's always exceptions to this, and this is a practice not to be considered a spiritual bypass or a over like toxic positivity where you're ignoring how you feel, or you're ignoring the reality of the nature of things. If you're having a negative thought or feeling, definitely feel that, get support, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But this is a great exercise for most of the time for the majority of people, so just note that. So let's just reiterate why we want to change the words, or why we want to command different words and experiment with them. So one thing to remember is we don't have to believe everything we think. We don't have to believe our thoughts. So I'll take something simple like someone that says, I can't run. And there's this thought, well, I can't run. And so I've heard a lot of people say this before, and I think I understand what they're saying. They probably don't like running, but they say they can't run. So they're telling their body and their mind that maybe they're not strong, they're not good at exercise. So it's interpretation also of those beliefs and those words. And I'm sure if that person wanted to, and they wanted to maybe start out walking slowly and then walking fastly and then bring it up to a jog and then running, they could of course very much run. And so the reason I'm using this example is because it can be very, very limiting, right? Because it's not just them saying, I can't run. It could be associated with, oh, I can't exercise, or, oh, I'm not able to do that. I'm not flexible. So we want to note that it's very much connected to underlying beliefs and experiences we might have had in the past. Maybe that person, they had their 12-minute mile when they were in school and they always came in last, right? Well, I know a lot of people that did, and they're excellent runners now. Like myself, right? An avid runner, didn't love the 12-minute mile, but I can run like nothing now. So it's a lot of the changing the beliefs is where we start to change the activities and our actions in our life. So that's one of the reasons why we want to change the words that we're saying, and which ultimately link to beliefs that we have about ourselves. So they will change our emotional state. It can, oh, I'm always grumpy. If somebody said that, they would be reinforcing the fact that they can't be happy because they're always grumpy. And so you can question those things. Is that true? Are you grumpy 100% of the time? Probably not. So we're starting by observing some of these limiting beliefs and these words. I can't, and the I'm always. I'm never able to finish a book, or I'm not able to do this. So we're questioning because we want to change the activity that will ultimately change the behavior that will lead to a more positive activity. And then the influence that it has on other people. So we want to be positive because it will also change the environment of those around us. If we start talking more positively, our outer circle is going to change. Either literally, it'll be different people in a different place, or they will pick up on this and they will respond nicely or well to this. And I'll ask our audience, have you ever been around somebody for a long time and you noticed that you started talking like them, or you started saying words like them? I remember, growing up in New Jersey, I remember when I moved out to California, I started saying things like for sure, or gnarly, or some of the really amazing, like they have so many wonderful adjectives that they use. And it just like, you just get a good feeling from it when somebody says these things. And so I loved that. I noticed wherever I was, I would pick up on these positive vibes of people. So just notice who you're around, what kind of words you're saying, and if you can change your words, and make a positive influence around those, which also goes to complimenting others. So I know I'm throwing a lot out there. Brian, let me know where we should go from here.
No, yeah, that's great. It's always a treat too when former star athlete Tara makes an appearance. So
That's right.
that was amazing. Consistency is key, but just getting started is really something that I think is very accessible to anyone that's listening, right? Because without a lot of effort, you can go from can't run to I'm learning to run, or I'm jogging now, right? So it's not that different. It's not that grand of a change. So it's definitely something that little tweak can make all the difference, right? There's a huge difference. It's only a couple of words change, but there's a huge difference between I can't run and I'm learning to run, and right now I'm jogging, or right now I'm walking and I'm on my way to doing it, right? So it also opens up the so many possibilities, right? And it eliminates that ceiling that can't, don't, shouldn't really puts on things, right? So there's such a limitation with no and not, and kind of those negative reinforcers. Removing them and tweaking them a little bit exponentially increases the possibilities, of what you can do. So that's what I really like about it. Minimum effort, or just a little bit of a tweak, and grand extensive possibilities. So that's
Yeah.
what's really hopeful here.
Yes. And you mentioned, when somebody's first starting out, how do we recognize what we're saying? Well, think back to a lot of the earlier episodes that we did, and I encourage people to listen to our affirmations and gratitude episodes, because there's a lot of overlaps there, and journaling is going to be really helpful in getting to see where some of these beliefs or words are popping up. So if you think it could be a negative belief, jot it down. And you'd be surprised how often you might have some of these. So a lot of it is observation and then writing it down. Or you could also get a buddy that will help you every time you say a certain word. And I'm going to go into a couple of common words that I suggest you refrain from. Never, always, try, and should are some examples. But every time you say these words in the beginning, you might not catch them. One way you can catch them is if you tell somebody that you trust or that's on board with you working on this to tell you when you say it. I mean, they could give you a little punch, a little jab, or just let you know, or like wink at you, whatever. If you have this communication between each other and you're really focusing on maybe not saying the word always or should. I used to say should all the time, and there's a joke in it that you're just shoulding on yourself, because what should does. So let's go into those few words. So if you say should, you are often saying you did something wrong, or you in the past you should have done something different, and that can bring upon feelings of guilt or regret or self-blame. So instead of saying should, you could say, I choose to, or I want to, or I could have. But should negates the reality of what happened, and we don't want to argue with reality. We want to just leave it in the past or accept it, which is another way to reframe things. And so what we're doing is we're starting to reframe. So instead of saying these words, we're changing them to not changing the meaning completely. We're just shifting it and experimenting with how it sounds, how it feels, and if it's helpful. So another one is a lot of absolutes. When you say always and never, it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room to the subconscious mind for any sort of change. It kind of shuts it down. Oh, I'll never be able to do that. Okay, shuts it down. So it doesn't even leave a little bit of opening of possibility that you can change it. If you say always, oh, I always do that, well, then your subconscious is not going to even look for solutions to alter that statement or that belief. So instead of saying always and never, I love is I used to, so you could say, I used to think that I couldn't run, or, in the past, I couldn't run, or had the belief that I couldn't run, or in the past, I used to be very grumpy, whatever the state of, or whatever the belief was, you used to, or in the past, because, and going back to living in the present moment, there really is no past so you always get a chance to start anew. Every moment is the chance to start anew. So every moment you can say that was in the past. So that's a beautiful reframe. The word try can be also a little limiting. You can say, instead of, oh, I'll try. So that same person that might not want to
Trying
run,
is failing.
Yes.
That's a kind of extreme interpretation, but there is a decent amount of truth in it.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I'll try. And so what that's saying is that's actually giving your subconscious a wiggle room to
A
get
way
out of
out,
it,
sure.
right? It's a way out. So it's very protective mechanism of not having to commit. So I understand that, in our common vernacular, if somebody invites you to a party and they're, yeah, I'll try to make it, like, and, maybe you don't really want to go or you're not sure. But when we're talking about something that you really want to change and you say, yeah, I'll try, instead say, I will, or I am doing this. And that's going to command to your subconscious, no, we don't have an option. Failure is not an option, and giving up is not an option right now. So I really love the reframes of, yeah, I will, I am, I can, I'm doing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we do things like for 21 days or 30 days. And that's one of the reasons there's a lot of evidence for habit formation with these certain time frames and benchmark. Say, for instance, want somebody to try to drink 64 ounces of water or something. All right, I'm gonna try to do that. Is different than I'm going to do that for the next 30 days, right? So I'm gonna try is a halfway, and you might very well go and do it, but if you get to 3 or 4 days and you stop, or you get to the weekend and you stop, you've still tried. So you've still kind of accomplished what you had set in your mind. But if you say, I am going to do this for the next 21 days or the next 30 days, right? That's already setting yourself up for more success.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons why we have those reframings that are successful and have proven to be successful.
Sure. And that's often why we'll say our affirmations in present tense, right? I am, I am loving, I am motivated. It sounds a little different if you say, I'm trying to become more motivated. There's definitely a disconnect. And so what we often do too, though, is we analyze with our conscious mind and our analytical mind that's logical. But a lot of this is, we're talking is subconscious. This is deeper. And so that's why even if things don't necessarily make sense, there is a saying of acting as if, when you're trying to manifest and when you're going for growth. And there's something to that, in that the subconscious mind doesn't think linearly or in time, and that we logically like to think of things. So in a way, we're tricking the subconscious mind by declaring it happening now, right? And also, spiritually, in a more spiritual sense, the only moment we have is now. So if we keep reframing to it being how we are, our state of mind right now, that will compound and amplitude a more accelerated change of state.
Excellent. Speaking of change of state, I mean, one of the things that I like to use anecdotally positive reinforcement for is in the classroom. And a lot of parents in 21st century are starting to use more positive reinforcement, right? We see a lot of self limitations and kind of self-deprecation, and I can't, I won't, I'm not good at, that can really, become the norm once you start like really developing those patterns and that wiring. It's so easy. I can't do math, or I'm not really that good at basketball, or I'm just not able to throw this far. I can't do a cartwheel. There's so many things that students and kids already think when they're so young, and then you imagine by the time they get older how that's like so ingrained. It's really difficult to rewire and change the pattern. So we try our best to turn I can't do this into the way I've been doing it hasn't been working, but I'm going to try a different way. Or now I have a chance to use a different strategy to solve this. Or I can do a little research and figure out how best to do a round off or cartwheel. I was thinking about round off or cartwheels because a lot of times people do get intimidated by athletics and gymnastics, especially for those who aren't in it. But our wrestling team, they do round offs as warm up. And a lot of it, people at first were like, well, I'm not going to be able to do that. But just thinking I either have to do this, or I want to do this, or I'm going to be capable of doing it, had worked so well, even more than the training of the muscles in your arms to do it. So I just saw it in real time. But it's super, super, super important for people that are learning to be able to have a positive mindset. And and to really reframe their thinking, because for the brain to develop and just to be open to new ideas and more complex thoughts and patterns of thinking, and just when you're growing and developing, you have to really be open to the possibility that you can do anything that you set your mind to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's now a good time to even overlap the nervous system into the mindset and the verbiage and the energy and what's expansive and what's restricting, right? So if you think of the imagination and creativity as the center of the brain and connection, that is when you're in rest or digest, and when you have a more ventral vagal nervous system response where you feel good and you feel safe, these words are expansive. And you could even see that, like, when I say the word love or compassion or kindness, inspiration, creativity, courage, those are usually expansive. So if we can start to incorporate them in our everyday language, we will actually have a physiological response and get ourselves out of fight or flight more frequently. So when we have words that are a little bit heavier, that are often more negative, being hate, anger, fear, worry, frustration, anxiety, if we have those words or things that are connected to those words, it can be constricting. It can make us actually activated in a fight or flight sense. And then that area of your brain, maybe some might call it the prefrontal cortex or the right brain, that creativity is going to be shut down a bit or even completely. And so that's how important words can impact your reality, your physiology, your health. A wonderful Louise Hay was a wonderful woman who was in the beginning of the New Age movement that talked about the power of affirmations and how they could heal your life. And so, if someone that's interested, I encourage you to explore her work. So yes, so absolutely. And also knowing that I want people to know that it's natural. Before the first time you do anything is to wonder, like, oh, can I do that? Am I going to be good at that? But then as you do it, it goes away. And so that we're saying, step a little bit outside of your comfort zone, explore where these limitations are coming from. Is it natural because it's the first time you're doing it? Or did somebody bully you when you were a child or told you couldn't believe it? Where did you pick that up from? Was it your caregivers? Was it school or classmates or society? Something that came externally? Is that actually, true? Is it true? And that goes back to, questioning our beliefs and our thoughts. You can say, like, is that actually true, or where did that come from? And that's where having a partner or a community where you have people that are supportive and like-minded to help you reframe this and to help you discover where these limitations might have come from and how you can overcome them or move past them.
Yeah, I totally agree. You had mentioned, where do we get the idea of limiting ourselves? One of the things about being positive, or as opposed to just say I can or I don't, a lot of people are so conditioned to want a quick fix or want an instant gratification, right? So if they're not just getting it right away or doing it right away, it's I can't, or I'm just not good at it, or I won't, or I'm not able to do this, right? But you really, and then, like you said, that affects the nervous system, and it's a cycle that really is spreads, and then it becomes more difficult to even come out of. That's where the danger lies. But you really need to be, when you change these words, also be open to the possibility. That's why we talk about the consistency, because it's not going to be an instant fix. You have to kind of see life has a bunch of challenges, and you have to see those as opportunities for growth. You have to trust and enjoy the process of doing that, of becoming the runner. You have to, like you said, be inspired by others and role models. You have to understand that there are going to be failures and learn and grow from them. You have to be creative and willing to step out of your comfort zone, and really understand that it's not just about it's about sustained, where we're looking towards a sustained state of contentment and joy, right? Not something that is just instantaneous. So just because I say, I'm a runner, that's great, right? Or I can run. I'm still not going to run a five. I might not run a 5 minute. You might, as the athlete in the
Right.
on the episode, but I'm not going to maybe run a 5 minute mile right away, right? Or a 7 minute mile right away. It's part
Mm-hmm.
of the process. But
Yeah.
if I keep saying that I am a runner, I'll have a much better chance of getting there as opposed to saying, well, I just can't run.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That's just not me.
Yeah.
So
And
you have
that,
to enjoy the process and understand that it's going to take a while, but that's going to be so much more worth it because again, that's part of carving out these new pathways, right? That we're going to live in and now spend our time in.
yes, beautifully said. And I you said it so nicely, like enjoy the process, right? So there, like back to the instant gratification, like we're not supposed to feel good all of the time, right? That's just not how our systems are designed. And actually, they are sometimes trying to avoid any sort of pain, right? There's a lot of protective measures, for good reason. So that's where we have to know ourselves, like know thyself, become self-aware, and know if that is a signal to that you can overcome that and become more resilient to that. We are evolving to be able to move past the overly alert, more reptilian type of nervous system responses, right? We're most of us are fortunate enough to not be in constant danger all the time, though we still we're still physiologically living as if we are. And so that we have the power using our words and our thoughts and commanding our life to change via our words, our actions, our behaviors, our thoughts. And so let's go into the surroundings and the company that you keep, right? It's very important to connect with like-minded or positive people, or even people that are where you want to be. And the nice thing is, usually those people are very supportive because they want to help others. So find some support and maybe get away from the old environment, right? If you're trying to quit drinking, you're probably not going to hang out at the bar. If you're trying to quit coffee, you're probably not going to go to the coffee shop as much. Or it can be very helpful to get out of those environments, at least for that 30 days while you're trying to change that behavior. So that would be an example of, if you're hanging out with people that are like, oh, I can't do that. Like there's no back to the I can't run example. If they're not going anywhere and they're actually there can be, I don't want to say it, there can be envy, right? If somebody is with a group of friends and there's no exercise involved and that person is starting to run and they might not be supportive and encouraging because they're thinking in their mind, oh, I should be doing that. Or maybe, and so people might feel a little bit insecure. So you might want to find people that are more supportive and that are not bringing you down. And I'm just using that as an example. That's not always going to happen. Many times your friends and family and coworkers and people you're around are going to support you, and they're going to, maybe they'll even want to change with you. But I'm just giving you an idea of what you might want to look at in your environment, and the people that are surrounding you are going to very much impact how you think and how you behave. And again, also with limiting with influences, right? So again, the environment that you're in, if it's not working for you, move, change it, try something different. And also the media and the content. This is so huge. I'm always telling my clients, get rid of your social media or some content that is making you activated or stressing you out for at least 3 weeks. Let's just say 30 days. For 30 days, right? I want to do a mental detox. So if you're going on, social media and you're finding yourself getting anxious or upset or feeling worse about yourself, especially, that's really important. If you're watching TV shows every night that are making you have bad dreams, I mean, all of this is interrelated. So I suggest doing a media cleanse, right? Be careful what you're watching. Think of it as all going into your subconscious mind, right? And so sometimes we don't even know what our own thoughts and what our own beliefs are because we're bombarded with all of the noise from the outside world. So I would encourage people that are really trying to change a behavior, or they're trying to create their reality or manifest something, be very careful with what kind of media that you are intaking. If you're scrolling, you don't even realize how much it's going into your subconscious. So I would say, and so if you're not doing even maybe like the whole 30 days, I'm not saying just, cut yourself off from the world, but start somewhere and start observing what you're taking in. And that can also be books and movies and TV shows, right? So some of them can actually be helpful, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when we're talking about visualizations. But that's a great place to start. Your environment, the people, the company that you keep, and your media consumption definitely are going to influence your thoughts. And we want to make sure that you are commanding your thoughts. You're in command of your thoughts.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, they call it doom scrolling for a reason, right? Doom is not high energy, positive words that you're going to read or hear when you're navigating the internet. So avoidance or placing yourself in different situations that, kind of are more likely to have kind of higher energy discussions, and people that are practicing what we're talking about today. Definitely a way to help separating yourself before you get to the point where, that negativity has got into you. It's almost, if you can preemptively do some of this stuff, if it's, a lunchroom that is going to have a conversation that you've had before, don't even try to put yourself there and then step out. Maybe you can just go during a different time or go to a different location, right? If you don't even want to get to the point where you're watching the news and then 15, 20 minutes into it, you're hearing about some violent assault or some really negative news story. If that is most likely going to happen because it's been a pattern, then you can just avoid it altogether and surround yourself with more positive energy. But there are times where you're just going to have to interact with certain people that are not, positively affirming things, or really not in the business of reframing. It's just kind of their very nature to gossip, to be self-deprecating. I'm not going to pronounce that properly on this episode, evidently, or just negative overall. There's like a lot of satire that they use, or sarcasm, or it helps them kind of feel better about themselves to maybe demean others or others' decisions. What do you do when you have no choice but to interact with a colleague, a boss,
Yeah.
someone that works for you, somebody that you're related to? Is there a way that you can kind of turn them? I mean, you're still working on yourself. How can you now work on them as well? We're talking about the power of words, right? You have these external words coming in and you're already working on yourself. What can you do in those situations?
Yeah. So the first thing I would suggest is let's talk about what not to do. What not to do is, say you have this, complaint free program that you're working on. There's this wonderful book, The Complaint Free World, I believe it is called. And in the man who did it, he created these wristbands. And every time that you had a complaint, you had to switch the wristband to the other hand and you had to start over. And the idea, I think, was to get to 30 days. And I remember trying this when I was a teacher, and I wanted my students to do this as well. And I said, you all are always complaining and you should really do this as well. So right there, what did I say? I said always and should, right? So I was, that was not a great start to convince them to do it, because I kind of insulted them indirectly. And so while I know that they knew that I was kidding, the whole thing didn't work out very well. And only a couple of people, it wasn't a mandatory assignment, but only a couple of kids, they ended up doing it. So that's one thing. You want to make sure that you're not pushing these things on other people and telling them like, oh, you should do this. You're always complaining about something. You should do this, right? Even though you're probably you're well-meaning, that's not going to go that well. So we want to make sure that if you are talking about it, you're just talking about what you're doing. Like, I'm doing this and I'm doing it for me. And if they want more information, they'll ask. So we don't want to push it on other people, and make it, we just want it to be focused on ourselves. But often that will allow, when people start seeing the results and seeing you change, they might be like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I see that's actually working, right? So that's one thing. When you're in an environment that you might like the lunchroom situation, or a work situation, or a family party or something like that, you might just stay neutral, right? And you might just, if there's gossip, you might just keep to yourself and not engage in it, and just be conscious of that. There's also, we may have spoken about this in Amy Lynn's episode, or I'm sorry, we'll have to, I believe it was Amy Rosner's episode. We'll get you the number for that in the show notes, but she would do cancel, right? And so when you heard something that you didn't want to take into your subconscious, you could do cancel. And you can make even a sign or just make a note. And like in my mind, I'll see like a little X, like, no, I don't want to take that belief on, like that's not for me. Or you could, in your mind, you could also say like, that's your story. And you could imagine actually having a barrier, like your energy field, not letting other people's energy coming into you. So if it's a lot of toxicity, you can just, in your mind, you could say, that's their story, that's not my story. So that helps delineate that, from feeling like, especially a lot of people that are in maybe the healing arts, or in caregiver situations, the empaths, they're going to take on a lot of this energy just naturally by being very open, very loving, very accepting. They're going to want to help. And so I find that a lot of my clients, they have, they're very empathic, they're very intuitive. They do need to have a lot of practices, and that is a good one, is putting yourself in a clear field of energy, imagining a white light surrounding you and protecting you from what's not actually energetically yours. But and then you can still be present with that person. So again, that's not my story. That's their story, and you can have an imaginary boundary.
And just kind of interject, be an example. I mean, do you find that can be successful too? Just changing the tone or attempting to talk about, a lot of times when you compliment those people as well, it's just that sometimes people are afraid to challenge that negativity. If you can be the one that's setting the example or guiding or talking about how much you've accomplished, right? I think about work, it's, talking about the complaining and things like that. If you can talk about how great of a job someone's doing, or how much you've gotten done, even though you have this deadline so far, we've done this, that can be contagious too, right? And that can spread. You can be the change agent as well.
Yes. And I think that's an excellent point, Brian. Thanks for bringing that up, is compliments. So complimenting other people and seeing them in their highest light. So maybe they're not there yet, but maybe they said something positive, and you could say, oh, I love that. I love that perspective. Like, thank you so much for letting me see that in an optimistic way. Or, giving them, just noticing like, oh, like you look, you look like you have a really bright glow to you. Like any sort of compliment that is potentially complimenting someone's inner state is very, very powerful. I mean, it's always nice to say like, oh, I love your outfit. That's like great. Like, I love your eyes, but even more so, it's like, oh, I love, I love your attitude, or I love the mood that you're in, or, I love the energy that you brought to this situation, or to the classroom, right? If a student does something, especially those students that maybe don't always raise their hand, right? And they do, and it's like, wow, I love that you raised your hand today. Like, thank you so much for sharing. Like, sometimes just thank you, like just a thank you, like thank you for being there, like thank you for listening, thank you for your presence. And also, while we're at the thank yous and the gratitudes of others and acknowledgments of their potential, is from our reminders to thank ourselves. So every time we do something that goes outside of our comfort zone, we don't often have other people saying like, good job, good job. So we have to be our inner cheerleader. And so when we do something like courageous, just say like, oh, like, way to go, Tara. Like, that was awesome. Like, I'm really proud of you. So maybe I'm talking to my inner child or my younger self, or maybe I'm not even overthinking it. And I'm just like, wow, I'm really, really happy I did that. Or I can really see the growth. And, I deserve to feel good, or something along those lines that resonates with someone. But acknowledging it, because if you're on this journey of accelerating growth really fast, you want to make sure that you're catching the milestones, because sometimes you get there and it's like, oh, I haven't even done anything. It's like, well, no, wait, hold on, let's go back and acknowledge all of these triumphs that you've hit that maybe other people haven't seen or realize how important they are to your evolution. So being your best cheerleader. So acknowledging other people and thanking them, or giving them a compliment, thanking yourself and other people as well, and celebrating, your victories, the victories of yourself and others.
Yeah, no, I think we see one of the examples we see where we're talking about positive words and language and reframing into belief of achievement is in athletics. And there's a lot of thanking teammates, coaches, people that you've worked with, that partner to that you've traveled with and worked out with, and your past successes, like you were talking about, right? So a lot of times, maybe to the untrained eye, it seems like conceit or braggadocious, vibe that people that are successful are projecting, but a lot of times it's just positivity, and it's actually taken them so far, so they continue to use it successfully. And I think that those people are a lot that I'm thinking about are really highly successful, and they've figured out a way to that internal dialogue to use that, right, to be the best that they can be. Visualization is another thing that a lot of athletes use, and coaches and things like that. I was thinking of the Little League World Series, which just ended a couple weeks back, and the Florida team had, for those who hadn't gotten a chance to look at it or follow along with it, they ended up defeating Chinese Taipei, aka Taiwan, in the final inning. It was down to the wire, walk-off win when they were behind, and it was kind of a crazy ending and just something that both sides will remember forever. The coach on the team actually had given them this speech in the middle out of like a Remember the Titans script, where basically he had told them he was visualizing the other day their victory, and this is exactly how he saw it playing out. And it was all the things that we're talking about right now. This has been the journey, right? That all the hard work that we've been putting in, this is part of it. Now, like, appreciate those moments where we've been doing the practices and we've worked on this so many times and we visualized it, and we appreciate our teammates and we appreciate each other. And, I've seen this happening because of all the positive energy and the vibes amongst the staff and the players especially. And this is going to happen. And you couldn't help but feel that high energy permeating through all the kids, the players that were listening. So that's evidence to me that this stuff truly works, because you see it happen all the time, and you can't go up to bat or to the free throw line or to make a kick or bowling. You can't just think, oh man, I'm going to gutter this and get a strike. That's not going to be the result of negativity, right? You're going to just not be successful, maybe even get hurt, right? You see how the people that are successful are super positive, and they're almost sometimes talking to themselves, like right? Hyping themselves up in a way like, I can do this. I'm the best. I am successful. I've been successful. There's a reason that they do it, because they've seen positive results.
Yeah, absolutely. I love working with athletes, be it amateur or professional, because they are so ready, willing, and able. They're like, yeah, give me the mindset stuff, give me the visualizations. Like, it's absolutely amazing. And what's wonderful about, I love that this is so mainstream and people are so open and using this in all areas of life, all uh, topics and societies and institutions. It's wonderful. And then the remember the Titans. You got me on that. I'm a sucker for inspirational films, but that's where I would say, like, watch those kinds of films and like feel that energy, that there's something behind it, right? So what's nice about the sports is we are all doing that all the time. We're all manifesting all the time. With sports, it's you can see like the cause and effect. You can see the results like very clearly and very distinguishedly. So I want people to use that as a great point of reference. Whereas sometimes we can't quite see our intrinsic progress. We can't quite see our negative thinking to positive thinking, and that's why it is it's very real, it's very true, and it's really happening. So give yourself credit, and talk about it with people around you that you trust, that are supportive, that are on. Get a buddy, get a accountability partner, whoever you can, to reflect back to you the good work that you're doing with this. And yes, so visualization's super powerful. We're always working on seeing ourselves in the best light, or what we want to accomplish. And yes, just like that coach, my clients or my loved ones, people that I meet all the time, a little trick that I do is I think of them in the best light possible. And I see them as their potential, as their higher self. I see them with a glow, and without all the conditioning, without all the junk and the unprocessed stuff. And so you could practice that, if you're around somebody that maybe is kind of a little bit negative, or they they are even considered toxic or an energy vampire. Instead of labeling them and saying, oh, I got to get away from this, like maybe they just need a little bit of your positive vibe transferred to them. I'm not saying hang out with them, but saying like, wow, I recognize maybe they've had a really rough life. Maybe they're going through something alone. Like maybe they're really struggling internally. They don't know how to ask for help. So there's a lot of what ifs, but if you can give them the benefit of the doubt and see them in the best light, and make your peace with it. And maybe you do choose to, not hang around them. And that's probably the best choice for you. But I want people to see themselves in other people, and wish others well, like give other people well wishes and give other people the benefit of the doubt. And they'll start to see the good in everyone, and they'll start to see the good in themselves, right?
Awesome. Well said. Yeah, so we talked about the inner dialogues. We talked about, external words that are used in interactions, and, also external words coming towards us. A kind of an in-between place is journaling or writing things down, right? Because those are kind of your internal thoughts, brought out, but still in a personal way, often only for your eyes. So we've talked about the benefits of journaling and writing things down in the past, several times. And is there a way that we can kind of actively, with intentionality, use journaling to reframe and kind of strengthen that reframing, and maybe if it's part of our nighttime routine, really set us up for sleep and for starting the next day already kind of one step ahead, um, with positive thoughts? Is journaling a practice that we can use kind of to hack our way towards more positive reframing and affirmations?
Yes, absolutely. So we could let's take the journal and a negative belief or thoughts that are not helpful, jot those down, and we can reframe them. So let's take someone that says, I'm not creative. I hear this a lot, and it hurts. It hurts my heart a bit, because it's not true. Everyone is creative. So somebody journals down like, I'm not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body. Never did, never will. So I would encourage them to think of a time when they were creative. Maybe it was a finger painting in kindergarten, and, it went to the fridge, and, it was creative. So it can be the smallest thing, but creativity means a lot of different things, right? What does creativity mean to that person? They might just think of artistic ability. And so then they created this belief that they are not creative, right? So I would say, what does that mean to you? First of all, where did it first come from? And how can we reframe it? I am becoming more and more creative each day. I'm exploring what creativity means. I am seeking out activities that induce creativity. I'm learning about different creatives. And so we're writing out different ways to think about that I am not creative belief. And it will become more expansive, and also how it makes them feel. It might make them feel inferior. It might make them feel not enough. It might make them, very limited in what they could do with their life. If they're not creative, then they're feeling stuck. So just that one little belief can be, they can journal about it, however, if they want to do it at night or in the morning. But very important to create the reframe or the opposite. I'm becoming more and more creative each day. I'm learning how to embrace my creativity. And also, I'm seeking out new creative ventures, something along those lines that they can play around with as they're journaling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say you should, once you write, jot and then it's done, or, look back on those, once we put them down, where do we go from there?
Yes, definitely. So you can write those, like make it an affirmation practice. But yes, definitely going back to where's there a blockage, or where was there a belief that was instilled in me that gave me this? And then also, how do I want to be? So who would I be without that belief? Maybe the first day they're just focusing on what the belief is. And then the next day they're working on reframing it. Then the next day they're working on who would I be if I was creative? So maybe they have this vision of being a musician or an artist or an entrepreneur, and someone told them that they could never do that. But they've gotten rid of that, and now the possibilities are endless. They can start making goals, like, okay, in 3 months from now, I want to have finished this class or this course. I want to have done A, B, and C. And they could imagine what their life would be, future hop into 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and write, what does their life look like? If they could do anything in the world, what does their life look like a year from now? Are they living on a island, on a tropical island, and have their own shop and living off the land? It can be the most, beautiful, serene, outlandish thing. No one's going to read it, unless they want someone to. But yes, I would say go back and read it, and reinforce it, assess it. But you can also, if it's really important and you really want to manifest this, there are other activities that you can do to create a vision board, right? Do those visualizations, do hypnosis. You can expand on that. So you'll see a lot of these processes are starting to link together, and so it's super cool because they're becoming even more powerful.
Absolutely. All right, so let me kind of just summarize what we've talked about today. 3 main points as far as the power of words go. First, we start off with observing your inner dialogue. So identifying the words that are helping or hindering your growth. That's the first step. Second, we talked about assessing how you're using your words in public with conversations and in environments that you find yourself in often. And then third, we discussed using journaling intentionally to kind of reprogram your mind with more positive, growth focused language. So we wanted to kind of leave the audience and our followers, which we're internally grateful for, thank them and, really impress upon them that the power of words can transform your life and your mindset. So 3 things that, if you want to expand on them, you can, but that I have set up are finding that partner or travel buddy to give you a little zap when they hear you using negative language, as a reminder, a bit of a negative language sponsor, if you will. So that it's great. We're not on this journey together all the time. So if you do have someone that is willing and able to work with you and keep you on the path to a positive language, a positive mindset, that can be very helpful. 2, is simply introducing high energy, high vibe words into your word bank, if you will. We're replacing the limiting language, but we're replacing it with not empty space, with empowering alternatives, right? So get those high energy words in there. And then third is there's a bunch of resources on our site to help you to refine your language and increase that energy, which we want to keep doing as we continue our journey. So there might be some words that you're struggling to incorporate or include. We have a list of them. We have a list of suggestions where these words are negative and they're so commonplace we might not even think that they have that negative spin to them, but they certainly do. And there are also some habit forming resources that we have as well. YourOwnSelf.com, TaraO'Neill.com. Anything else, Tara, to add as we close?
Yes, and just to reiterate, whenever you are picking up a new practice, to remember AAC. So action, assessment, and consistency, right? So you're commanding and taking action, and you're assessing and reassessing where you're at, and the consistency. So you're maybe 30 days and every day the same time. And so action, assessment, consistency.
Awesome. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you again for everyone tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram and, of course, youroneself.com and TaraO'Neill.com. We will have a link to a bunch of these resources in the show notes. I definitely think Will Bowen's book, A Complaint Free World, that Tara reference, is definitely a must read. Carol Dweck's stuff on growth mindset versus fixed mindset also include some resources there. We have a bunch of stuff on our website as well. We want to keep everyone educated and informed, and it's great to see that science and studies and research backs all of this up as well. So thank you very much, and we will see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Peace, love, and self-discovery.